Welcome to our deep dive into the world of charm. We're going to be exploring The Power of Charm, a book that claims that being charming isn't something you're just born with.
Right.
It's a skill you can learn.
Absolutely. And mastering charm can really have a big impact on your success.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and in social situations, your influence at work,
Uh-huh.
and even just your ability to connect with people.
Okay, so it's more than just being likable then? What does charm actually look like in action?
Well, the book talks about this guy, Mark Sanborn. He's a professional speaker, and he met Bill Clinton.
Okay.
Now, Sanborn didn't actually agree with Clinton's political views,
Hmm.
but he was completely captivated by Clinton's charm.
Really?
Yeah, Clinton just had this way of making Sanborn feel like he was the only person in the room just by giving him his full attention and being so warm.
I can totally relate to that. I've definitely met people who just have that magnetic presence.
Right.
They make you feel seen and heard, even if you're in a crowded room.
Exactly. And the authors of this book break down this charm factor into 5 key behaviors.
Right.
They call them the 5 A's.
5 A's.
Acceptance, appreciation, approval, admiration, and attention.
5 A's. Okay, I think I can remember that. So let's start with acceptance. I'm guessing this goes beyond just tolerating someone.
It does. Acceptance in this context is about unconditional positive regard.
Okay.
It's about making someone feel comfortable and accepted for who they are, flaws and all.
And wouldn't a genuine smile be a big part of showing that acceptance?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A smile is a powerful tool.
Uh,
It instantly puts people at ease. Think about it. How do you feel when someone greets you with a genuine smile?
It definitely makes me feel welcome and relaxed.
Right.
And you know what? I've actually noticed that when I make an effort to smile at people, it changes the whole dynamic of our interaction.
Okay, moving on to appreciation. Think about how great it feels when someone expresses gratitude for something you've done.
Mm.
Even just a simple thank you can really brighten someone's day and make them feel valued.
Oh, for sure. I always make a point of thanking people, even for little things.
Yeah.
And, you know, it makes me feel good too.
That's the thing about appreciation. It creates a positive feedback loop that benefits both people.
Okay.
Now let's talk about approval. It's something that we all crave to some extent.
Yeah, I've always heard that we're wired for connection and belonging, so it makes sense that getting approval would be a big motivator.
The book actually has some practical exercises for expressing genuine approval.
Oh, really?
One of them is called Rediscovering a Friend.
Rediscovering a friend.
It encourages you to see your friend with fresh eyes, like you're noticing all their positive qualities for the first time, and then you actually tell them what you admire about them.
Wow. I bet that would be really powerful for your friend to hear.
It would. It's a great way to strengthen that friendship and make the other person feel seen and appreciated.
Okay, now what about admiration? Isn't there a fine line between admiration and just flattery?
There is. But true admiration is about recognizing someone's genuine strengths and talents
Yeah.
and expressing your appreciation for those things in a way that feels authentic.
So, like giving someone a sincere compliment on their work ethic
Yeah.
or their creative problem-solving skills.
Exactly. And last but not least, we have attention.
Okay.
This might actually be the most important element of charm.
Oh, really?
It's about making someone feel like they're the center of your universe.
I feel like that's where the real magic happens, so tell me more.
We're going to go deeper into attention a little later on. But first, I want to talk about the one skill that's absolutely essential for giving someone your full attention, and that's listening.
The art of listening. I think I'm a pretty good listener,
Okay.
but I'm always open to learning some new tricks.
Well, this book highlights the connection between being a good listener and having emotional intelligence.
Okay.
It also breaks down effective listening into 4 key elements.
4 keys. Okay, I'm ready to unlock the secrets of truly attentive listening. What's the first key?
The first key is to listen attentively, to give the speaker your undivided attention like nothing else matters more. The book has this great visual that says, listen with your eyes as though they were sun lamps giving the person's face a tan.
Ooh, I love that imagery. It really emphasizes that intensity and focus of really listening to someone.
And there's a scientific reason why attentive listening is so powerful. When you really listen to someone, it triggers a release of endorphins in their brain.
No way. So by listening, we're actually making the other person feel good.
You are. It's a win-win.
Wow.
And it boosts their self-esteem because they feel valued and respected.
Okay, what's the second key?
Pausing before replying.
Pausing. You mean not just jumping in with a response the second they stop talking?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The book suggests pausing for 3 to 5 seconds before you respond.
Mm-hmm. That might feel a little awkward.
It might at first, but it sends a really powerful message.
What kind of message?
It shows that you're really considering what they said instead of just waiting for your turn to talk.
Oh, okay. It shows respect and thoughtfulness. Exactly. Which makes the other person feel valued, and it also gives you time to come up with a more thoughtful response.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm starting to see how these little changes can really make a difference.
They can. The third key is to never assume that you know exactly what the speaker means. Always question for clarification.
So instead of jumping to conclusions, you encourage the speaker to elaborate.
Right. And when you do that, you're actually the one guiding the conversation because you're asking the questions.
Interesting. I never thought about it like that, but it's true.
And the fourth and final key is to feed it back to paraphrase what you heard in your own words.
So it's not enough to just listen passively. You need to show that you understand what they're saying.
Right. It shows that you're present and listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Now, have you ever noticed any differences in the way men and women listen?
That's a great question. I have a feeling this is where things get really interesting.
You're right.
Yeah.
The book actually talks about how to charm men and women differently,
Okay.
recognizing that they tend to value things in different ways. So let's start with the ladies. What are the keys to charming a woman?
The book really emphasizes understanding a woman's deeper needs: affection, attention, and respect.
I think everyone needs those things.
Right.
But maybe women just prioritize them differently.
Maybe. They also really appreciate a good listener. There's this funny anecdote in the book about a comedian who said that therapy is like a first date for a woman because she gets to talk about herself for an hour without being interrupted.
Ouch. I guess that plays into the stereotype that men aren't the best listeners.
It does. But it emphasizes how important it is for women to feel heard.
Okay.
Another key to charming a woman is to be impressed, not impressive.
So instead of trying to brag about your own accomplishments, you should focus on genuinely being impressed by hers.
Exactly. Now, when it comes to charming a man,
All right, gentlemen, listen up. What are our secrets to success when it comes to charm?
the book highlights a man's need for achievement status, respect, and security.
Okay.
They really thrive on accomplishing goals and providing for the people they care about.
So how do we use this knowledge when we're interacting with men, like our partners, colleagues, or friends?
Well, the book tells this story about Brian Tracy, and he noticed how his son Michael would just light up when his teacher praised his accomplishments.
Oh, that's sweet.
It made him feel so valued and motivated.
So acknowledging a man's achievements, whether it's a promotion at work or just mastering a new skill, goes a long way in making him feel appreciated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shows that you recognize his efforts, and that can be really affirming. Now, so far we've been talking about charm as something that comes from within, like our attitudes and beliefs. But what about our outward behavior?
That's a good point. Does simply acting charming actually make a difference?
It really does. The book actually calls this the outside-in approach.
Outside in.
Yeah. Sometimes changing how we act can actually change how we feel. Think back to that Bill Clinton story. Was his charm all genuine, or was it just really good acting? Does it even matter if the effect is the same?
That's a good question. I wonder if we can actually fake it till we make it when it comes to charm.
There's another story in the book about a woman named Miriam who went through behavioral therapy. Instead of focusing on why she acted the way she did, her therapist helped her change her actions.
Yeah.
She became less reactive, more pleasant to be around, and it led to a huge personal transformation.
That's amazing. It sounds like how we act really can shape how we feel. I'm seeing charm in a whole new light now.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And speaking of behavior, let's talk about the specific signals that make people feel truly listened to. The book calls these the 8 signals of attentive listening.
8 signals. All right, give me the rundown. What's the first signal?
It all starts with eye contact.
Yeah.
That direct gaze that says, you have my full attention.
I've always felt that eye contact is really important,
It is.
but I've never really thought about it in the context of charm.
Well, the book has this funny story about Ron Arden and his strict fencing instructor.
Okay.
The instructor insisted on unwavering eye contact. If Arden's gaze even wandered for a second, the instructor would physically turn his head to face him.
Wow, talk about taking eye contact seriously.
Right. But you don't want to overdo it.
Hmm.
Too much eye contact can be intimidating. The book recommends aiming for about 75 to 85% eye contact.
Okay.
And to keep it natural, try mastering the flick.
The flick.
It's this subtle technique where you shift your gaze from one of the speaker's eyes to the other.
Oh, How's that
Think of
good?
those classic movie scenes where two people are gazing into each other's eyes
Yeah.
and their eyes are kind of flitting back and forth.
I can picture it. It creates that sense of intimacy and connection.
Exactly. The flick shows that you're actively listening, not just staring blankly.
Wait,
What's another
what's
signal you use when you're listening to someone?
head tilts?
Yeah.
I do that all the time without even thinking about it.
Head tilts are great.
Yeah.
It's a subtle way to convey curiosity and engagement. There's this cute anecdote in the book about Ron Arden's Dalmatian Pepper.
Ah,
And Pepper would tilt her head whenever Arden talked to her, like she understood every word.
that's adorable. I can just picture that little head tilt. So should we be tilting our heads constantly when someone's talking?
No, not constantly. The book has a simple rule. Tilt your head when you're listening and straighten it when you speak.
Okay, tilt to listen, straighten to speak. I can
Yeah.
remember that. What about head nods? I always thought of those as a way of showing agreement.
Head nods can show agreement, but they can communicate so much more.
Really?
There's the slow nod that says, I'm with you, I'm thinking about what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the slightly faster nod that says, I agree with you.
Okay.
And then there's the really fast nod that says, I agree and I'm excited about it.
Wow, I never realized there were so many different types of head nods. It's like a secret language.
It is.
Mhm.
And even professionals use head nods strategically.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that TV interviewers will often film their reactions separately?
What? Why would they do that?
They could add in noddies during the editing process.
Naughties. That's so funny.
It just shows how much we rely on those nonverbal cues.
Yeah, that's true. So we've talked about eye contact, head tilts, and head nods. What about our overall body language? How does that factor into attentive listening?
It's all about facing the speaker, leaning in slightly, and using open, welcoming gestures. Basically anything that says, I'm here with you, I'm engaged in this conversation.
It makes sense. I definitely feel more connected to someone when they're fully present, both physically and mentally.
Exactly. The book mentions that guy from Seinfeld, the close talker.
Oh,
He
yeah.
stands way too close to people when he talks. It's a funny example, but it shows how even well-intentioned body language can backfire.
Okay, so what are some specific body language tips for showing engagement?
Turning your body toward the speaker, leaning in slightly to show interest, and avoiding closed-off postures like crossing your arms.
It's about being present with your whole body, not just your mind.
Exactly. And just like there are body language signals that show you're engaged,
Yeah.
there are signals to avoid, like slouching, looking away, checking your phone, or fidgeting.
Right.
Those all signal disinterest.
Yeah. It's amazing how much these little signals can affect our interactions.
The book tells a story about a lawyer whose body language was actually hurting his case.
Really?
He was a big guy who tended to slouch and look disinterested, which made him come across as arrogant and uncaring.
Oh, wow. It's a good reminder that first impressions are so important.
They are. And our body language speaks volumes whether we realize it or not.
Okay, so moving on. What's the seventh signal of attentive listening?
Vocal reassurances.
Vocal reassurances. What are those?
They're those little sounds we make when we're listening.
Oh, like...
Things like that.
Okay, I see.
It's like a verbal nod.
Yeah,
It encourages the speaker and shows them that you're engaged.
I like that.
And the eighth and final signal is verbal reassurances.
So that's a step up from just the sounds.
It is. It's using short phrases to show that you're listening.
Okay, so like...
You could say things like, I see, really, or, well, is
Okay,
that so?
Okay.
Those acknowledge the speaker without necessarily agreeing with them.
So you're recognizing their point of view, but not necessarily endorsing it. What if you do agree with them?
Then you can use more committal phrases like, yes, without question.
Uh-huh.
I agree, absolutely, or you hit the nail right on the head.
So it's all about matching your words to the level of agreement or support you want to express.
Exactly. And you also want to pay attention to your tone of voice.
Hmm.
We've all heard that saying, it's not what you said, it's how you said it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Tone of voice can completely change the meaning of something.
Now, we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive. We talked about the 5 A's, the 4 keys to effective listening, and now the 8 signals of attentive listening.
I'm already feeling inspired to start practicing these techniques, but where do we go from here?
In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to get into some really interesting tips for mastering charm in those all-important telephone conversations.
Okay.
Because even when you can't see the other person, your voice can be a powerful tool for connection and rapport.
I can't wait to hear more about that. Until then, everyone keep those smiles shining and those listening ears open. Welcome back to our deep dive into the power of charm. We spent part 1 exploring all sorts of fascinating stuff, like the 5 A's, those 4 keys to effective listening, and even all those subtle body language cues that can really make someone feel heard. But what happens when we take those charm skills to the phone?
That's a great question. And the book actually dedicates a whole section to phone conversations.
Oh, really?
Because even when you can't see the person, your voice becomes your main tool for building that rapport.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I mean, think about how a friendly voice on the other end of the line can just totally change your mood, especially when you're having a rough day.
It makes a huge difference. Think about how you feel when someone answers the phone abruptly, almost like you're bothering them. It's instantly off-putting.
Yeah.
The book actually tells this story about a customer who called a company, and the receptionist just answered with a gruff K and B.
K and B.
Wow.
Talk about a charm-free interaction. What happened?
The customer was so surprised, she actually asked the receptionist to say good morning instead.
I love that. I bet that simple request just completely changed the tone of the conversation.
It did. And it just shows how even the smallest change in your tongue can make a world of difference. So how can we make sure our voices are conveying warmth and welcome even when we're just talking on the phone?
Well, I've heard that smiling when you talk can actually make your voice sound friendlier. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you smile, it changes the shape of your mouth, which affects how your voice resonates. You can often hear a smile in someone's voice even if you can't see them.
Okay, so I'm going to try smiling more when I'm on the phone. What other tips are there for making a good first impression when you're talking on the phone?
Speaking clearly and distinctly is key.
Yeah.
Enunciate your words. Avoid mumbling. No one wants to have to struggle to understand you.
Ugh. Yeah, I hate those voicemails where you have to replay it like 5 times just to figure out the phone number.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And pay attention to your pace. Don't speak too fast, especially when you're giving important information.
So no speed talking through important details.
Right. Slowing down makes you easier to understand, and it also conveys a sense of calmness and confidence.
Okay. But beyond that first impression, it's important to pay attention to how the other person is communicating, right?
Yes. The book talks about understanding whether someone is more detail-oriented or emotion-oriented. They use these terms systematic cues and heuristic cues.
Those sound kind of technical. What does that actually mean?
It's basically about figuring out if the person prefers facts and logic, or if they're more focused on emotions and feelings. Do they get into the nitty-gritty details, or are they more about sharing how they feel about things?
Okay, so it's like speaking different languages. You need to find that common ground.
Exactly. You need to be on the same wavelength, speaking their language, meeting them where they are. And once you've got that rapport, how do you maintain that connection and keep the conversation going smoothly?
Well, we already talked about active listening. Do those same principles apply when you're on the phone?
For sure. Even though you can't see the person, you can still use vocal and verbal reassurances to show that you're engaged.
Okay.
Those I sees, and reallys can really keep the conversation flowing and make the person feel heard.
Like those breadcrumbs we talked about earlier, leading the conversation along.
Exactly. And when it's your turn to talk, keep it short and sweet. No rambling on and on.
So no more telling my life story to the customer service rep.
Maybe save that for another time. Be clear and direct with what you need to say. And if you have to interrupt, always apologize and take the blame. It's so easy to sound rude or dismissive on the phone.
Yeah, that's good advice. So when it is our turn to share information, how do we make sure we're keeping the other person engaged and interested?
Remember what we discussed earlier. People love stories. Use examples and tell anecdotes to illustrate your points. It brings the conversation to life.
So instead of just listing facts, weave them into a story.
Exactly. And even though it's a phone call, you still need to be mindful of social etiquette. Don't make assumptions about how comfortable the person is with being informal. It's always best to be respectful and professional.
So no inappropriate jokes or sharing personal stuff that they didn't ask about.
Right. And remember, slow and steady wins the race. Speak at a comfortable pace and use pauses to give the person time to process what you're saying. It's like those fast-talking traffic reporters. It's hard to understand anything when they're talking a mile a minute.
Ugh, tell me about it. Sometimes I feel like I need a rewind button just to catch what they said.
And just as important as pacing is being mindful of how much you're sharing. Don't overshare. Give them the information they need, but don't overwhelm them with too much detail. Be respectful of their time.
It's about getting to the point. But I imagine we also need to be aware of the other person's emotional state, even if we can't see their face.
Absolutely. Pay attention to their tone of voice and try to match their energy level. If they're excited, match that enthusiasm. If they're sharing something difficult, be empathetic and supportive.
It's about creating that emotional connection even through the phone.
Exactly. And lastly, remember that your voice is your instrument. Keep it animated and lively and vary your tone and volume. That will keep the listener engaged.
So no monotone droning.
Right. Think of your voice like a musical instrument. It can express so much. And don't forget to smile. It really does come through on the phone.
This is great advice. I feel so much more confident about my next phone call. I'm starting to realize that phone charm is just as much about strategy as it is about sincerity.
I like that. It's about using your voice to create a positive and memorable experience for whoever you're talking to.
This has been so insightful. I'm already feeling more confident about my next phone call. But what happens when we bring all of these charm techniques together, both on and offline? How do we make charm a part of our everyday lives?
That's a great question, and it leads us right into the final part of our deep dive. We'll be exploring how to become a master of charm, not just in certain situations, but in every aspect of your life.
Welcome back to our deep dive into charm.
We've covered so much ground.
Yeah, from those 5 A's to really nailing those phone conversations.
Oh,
I
boy.
feel like I've learned a ton and I'm ready to start using all these techniques.
That's great to hear. But before you go out and try to charm everyone, remember,
What's that?
remember what the authors of The Power of Charm say.
Okay, what do they say?
Charm isn't some destination, it's a journey.
Oh, so it's not about becoming perfectly charming and then you're done?
Nope. It's about always learning and growing, always trying to connect with people in a deeper, more genuine way.
That makes sense. It's like anything else, you have to keep practicing and improving.
Exactly. And I know it can seem overwhelming at first. There's a lot to remember.
I'm already feeling like I need a cheat sheet just to keep track of all those listening signals.
Don't worry, you don't have to master everything all at once.
Yeah.
Just start small, pick one or two things that really resonate with you,
Okay.
and start incorporating them into your everyday life.
So like maybe I focus on making better eye contact or using those verbal reassurances?
Perfect. And just be patient with yourself. It takes time to build new habits. Don't get discouraged if you don't see results right away.
Yeah, it's like learning anything new practice makes progress, not perfection.
Right. And always remember, the goal isn't to become someone you're not.
Mm.
It's about just becoming a more polished version of yourself and connecting with people authentically.
So it's about being genuine, not fake. I like that.
And here's a good one from the book. They say the only time to be charming is now.
Ooh, that's a good one. No more waiting for the perfect moment.
Exactly. It's about being present in each interaction and trying to make the other person feel valued.
So if we were to sum up all of this wisdom, why is it so important to be charming? What's in it for our listeners?
The benefits are huge, both personally and professionally.
Okay.
Charming people tend to be more successful and influential and persuasive.
They're the ones who get people to listen to their ideas, build strong relationships,
Yes.
and really inspire others.
And on a personal level, charm can really make your relationships stronger, deepen your connections, and make your life more fulfilling.
It's like you're bringing positive energy everywhere you go and making the world a little bit brighter.
That's a great way to put it. Who wouldn't want to be a source of positivity?
So true. Okay, I'm feeling inspired to go out there and unleash my inner charmer.
I love it. And remember, charm is a gift that keeps on giving. The more you use it, the easier it gets, and the more benefits you'll see.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Our deep dive into the world of charm. We explored the science, the strategies, and the amazing potential of this crucial skill.
And now it's your turn.
Go out there and be charming. Remember, there's no time like the present.
Until next time, happy charming.
And keep diving deep.